Is another U.S. military personnel complicit in spilling secrets and actually operating a pro-Russian social media network? This wild story and your battlefield updates are coming up right now. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's April 17th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's do it. Okay, first we look at the control map. It's listed as minor frontline updates, but when I look at this is actually not that minor. This represents several city blocks that Russian forces have taken in Bakhmut, especially approaching the last Ukrainian holdout along this key rail line that demarcates the western part of Bakhmut. While Russian forces, again, are seizing territory block by block, they are likely not able to exploit these gains into larger breakthroughs, but nonetheless, it seems almost inevitable at this point that Russia will end up seizing the entirety of Bakhmut. They'll probably declare victory when Ukrainian forces are on the outskirts of the city. I would assume, I would hope, but Ukrainian command has continually sort of let me down with their questionable competence. I would assume that they have some sort of defensive works being prepared, probably along this line, likely to use this these water formations here as natural barriers to sort of reconnect the defensive lines. This would be, of course, beneficial for Ukraine because the actual total distance that they need to defend would be much smaller than in Bakhmut, and it's open territory. And they should, I have assumed from day one, and they've stated this at different times, that Bakhmut is not about achieving a victory. It's about attriting Russian combat power. Has it attrited Russian combat power faster than it's attrited its share of Ukrainian combat power? That remains to be seen. Again, I really am holding out hope that the units engaged in this, as we've seen in some of the GoPro footage, these are TDF units. They are the deepest reserve of the Ukrainian armed forces. And I think that because they are less trained, less capable, they're not being asked to do offensive work. They're being asked to hold the line as best they can, while the top tier Ukrainian units train and get equipment from Western countries. As you guys know, combatvetnews.net is my site that I had to launch when Patreon booted me off. But that is actually where you can see just last Friday, we looked at the GoPro footage of the Ukrainian TDF forces. And I can't show you the video because it's helmet cam footage. But if you want to support what I do, YouTube is always cracking down on it. Become a member and you can get access to all this members only content. But if you want to come on to combatvetnews.net, you can check out for free all our daily Ukraine news updates that I can't talk to in this video, and all my YouTube videos. So do check it out, support the channel. It's a huge help. But also understand that these units, right, I'm not expecting them to make gains. I'm not expecting them to retake Bakhmut. I think the expectation is that they continue to fight a broadly delaying action against Russian forces. Again, TDF units on this side, combat hardened Wagner Group troops and Russian VDV airborne forces on the other. So, the winner is not a foregone conclusion, but it seems like pretty clear who the eventual winner will be. But if Ukraine can use its TDFs to free up its troops and prepare for a larger counteroffensive, that will make a huge, huge difference. And we know that based on some of these leaked documents that it could be literally any day now, since the leaks only went up to April. But Ukraine claims it had to go back to the drawing board after those leaks. Very complicated and difficult stuff. We should talk about these leaks. Real quick, we'll take a look at the combat map and then we'll talk leaks. You can see in the combat map, right, only 60 independent attacks by Russian forces, but they have really learned economy of force, right? You can see very few attacks pressuring along the southern prong of Avdiivka. and heavily concentrating in Bakhmut itself and a smattering along this Crimea-Lyman northern axis here. But that's it, right? Russian forces being very disciplined with their troops. Finally, so late in this conflict. If they had been this disciplined and systematic on day one, this conflict probably would have gone very differently. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about one of the craziest stories. It was so crazy. Again, this is why I really like Ground News. They are a sponsor of the video, but they're the easiest sponsor I have because I use them whether either behind the scenes before I film or in this case in real time. What they do is they take news stories and they help us discern the credibility of different stories. And as you guys can see, this one reported by 4 sources, but you can see 2 of them on the political left and 2 kind of on the center right, one of which is the Wall Street Journal, right? A very, and Political Wire. So 2 outlets that really are credible reporting sources. So when you see this, that an ex-Navy NCO has also spread secrets, we know that the potential for things to be pretty weird is out there. So Wall Street Journal is reporting that in addition to Airman First Class Jack Teixeira, who is responsible for leaking the highly classified Pentagon briefings, he was actually a Massachusetts Air National Guardsman who somehow had access to these high-level Pentagon briefings. Wild. But he leaked them to his Discord group, which apparently was about half very young men in their 20s and about half literal children, teenage #gamers, which is hilarious because apparently it was a very tough guy kind of server, lots of guns and God, like just weird in the way that the internet always is. But that isn't even what I'm talking about. Those accounts were amplified by apparently a former U.S. Navy non-commissioned officer. And by former, we mean her name is actually, let's see if we can find her name here. Refers to her as Miss Bills, Sarah Bills. Sarah Bills was on active duty until last year. She's 37 years old, but she operates under the pseudonym Donbas Devushka, which translates to Donbas Girl. And she found these files from these Discord servers and reposted them into the pro-Russian media space. Of course, she claims she is just the one face of a network of pro-Kremlin social media podcasting, merchandise, and fundraising accounts. Obviously, you got to sell merch. But she hosts the podcast as Donbas Devushka, and she is a former Washington State-based enlisted aviation electronics technician. So what's crazy, again, is that she has this personality. She has about 65,000 followers on her Telegram, which is the primary social media for pro-Russian commentators of all stripes. She's apparently one of the largest English language accounts. And it's just wild to me that she was out here with this huge following as a U.S. Navy technician, and at no point did they identify her, right? Like, how blind and dumb do these people have to be? She's hosting a podcast. Like, it's not a secret, especially if she has merch, right? Like, you have to, in the U.S., you have to provide real tax information to get merch. So it's just wild to me that she was not being watched at all. And she was just allowed, again, throughout her service. Right? She herself didn't steal any classified information. She said, quote, "I obviously know the gravity of top secret classified materials. We didn't leak them. The problem is that she may have knowingly amplified them. And that itself is kind of a crime. It's one of the reasons that actually I only report on credible news sources that talk about these files. I haven't actually displayed them on this screen. I haven't actually viewed many of them for this exact reason, because I could get in a lot of trouble, and I don't have journalism insurance. Again, one of the reasons I have to show my website because this is some like high risk stuff. And I'm literally one dude in his webcam trying to give you guys honest accounts of what's going on. This is just crazy that he had posted this stuff and it just sort of stayed inside these Discords. And another member reposted the files to a larger Discord gaming server, and they still remained unnoticed. And it wasn't until she encountered them that she really leaked them to the Russian military space. Right? This is just crazy. It's crazy to me that there's all of these. Oh, here's a picture of this individual from the Fleet Readiness Center Northwest. Looks like maybe a retirement ceremony, but this is just crazy to me because this is a long-serving U.S. military personnel, and she's out here shilling for Russia. She was an E7, right? Just wild, man. I mean, just utterly wild stuff. Right. She's recorded podcast. Yeah. Right. Recorded. Yeah. Podcast with guests advocating, repeating pro-Russian talking points. She originally from New Jersey, spoke with a slight Russian accent, claimed to have been born in Luhansk. In the interview, she said she had some Russian heritage, but did not provide details. So it was probably an affect. Again, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, this is some sort of CIA double-cross plant. Guys, if you've ever been in the U.S. military, you know that's not the case. A 20-year E7 aviation electronics mate, probably not a secret spy. If you've been in DC, you've met some people who do like top secret work, they can't talk about, and they're not these people. And they definitely would know to politely decline if the Wall Street Journal asked for an interview. But here she is chit-chatting away. All you do in these public interviews is risk incriminating yourself and creating a record that you've done something stupid. You shouldn't do that. You should just delete everything, contact a very good lawyer. And if you really are a Russian asset, if you actually are a Russian asset in the United States, you should try to have your handlers extract you, because she may not realize she's in a lot of trouble. If true, right? But you can see here, literally she has a podcast on Spotify. Just crazy. From multiple angles with guests that you know. Okay, guys. Okay. This is just all crazy stuff. But again, is it indicative that the U.S. military is running some secret counter operation? Well, no, it's not. It's not. The Wall Street Journal doesn't uncover these sort of things. Big. Generally, as we've seen, large media corporations are disturbingly aligned with the interests of the government and some of the intelligence community. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Be sure to check out combatvetnews.net. Check out the link to Ground News if you're interested in supporting what they do. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one.